Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
Welcome to Utah's longest-running sports podcast. This is Dog and Deuce. Every week we take a deep dive into the Utah Jazz, the Utes, the Cougars, the Aggies, and everything in between. With back-to-back losses to the lowly Timberwolves, the Jazz are in a tough fight for that number one seed. But as a playoff picture takes shape, would you be okay with them falling to 2? Plus, the NFL draft is here, and Floyd Mayweather is going to fight Jake Paul. Can't believe I said that sentence. Can't believe this is real life. But regardless, we've got all that and a whole lot more coming your way on Dog and Deuce number 366.
From Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the Dog and Deuce Show, episode number 366. If you want to know more, and I sure hope you do, follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
You can watch this show on your television set all weekend long on K-Patter TV, or if you're in Southern Utah, you can watch on Backcountry TV, or you can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would love to hear from you. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And this is episode 366. If you would indulge us for just a quick minute here, we got a couple housekeeping things we'll take care of real quick, and then we'll get to the sports ball chatter. First of all, lots of positive feedback for our Frank Turner interview. And so everyone who listened to that, thank you very much. And thanks for the feedback. And that was, I said it on after the interview, but for me, that really was kind of a special thing because he is, he's one of my favorites. So to get to talk to him was really cool. So thanks again, James, for setting that up. That was a special thing for me, at least.
No question. Me as well. Exciting, fun, insightful. I'm glad everyone else enjoyed it as much as we did doing it. Yeah,
that was great. Also, we recorded the Frank Turner interview before we did last week's show, and then we held on to it to release it on Monday of this week. So, and by the way, you can go back and you can watch that on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/DD on sports. You can also listen to it if you go over to doganddeuce.com or find it wherever you get your podcasts. It's on every single podcast platform. But after the fact, we actually got invited to go on a great jazz podcast called Hitting the High Notes. Fantastic. It was a lot of fun talking to those guys. Who and Logan and Jared wasn't there, unfortunately, but he was there in spirit, and it was really cool to talk to them. Dude, I kind of felt bad the whole time because, we can talk, you and I, we can talk, and we kind of and there was a point where I looked up, and we started the interview at 11:30 at night, and there was a point I looked up, and I'm like, dude, it's 1 a.m, and these poor guys have to sit there and listen to us. I feel bad for them, but it was a lot of fun, man, being able to talk some Jazz basketball. We talked kind of about some of what we're going to discuss today, and that's the playoff seeding and how you can kind of game the system. We spent a long time on that. We also talked about something we don't really do on this show, is we talked about kind of our origin story and how we started podcasting way back in the day. So if you are listening on the podcast, we will have links to that show in the show notes. You can find that at doganddeuce.com or on any of the podcast platforms, as always. And if you're on the YouTube channel, there'll be links down below as well. So definitely, even if you don't listen to our episode, subscribe to them. Subscribe to actually every show on the Jazz Pod Co-op, because there's some fantastic people doing some fantastic things. We've had Brian Priest on. We're gonna make our way down the list of people on the co-op to get them on the show. So thanks again to Who and Logan and Jared for having us on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo those sentiments and just add, things got a little crazy. Things were a lot of fun. Late night loopiness is how I like to do it. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty fun show, and we look forward to having them on and continue to collaborate with them everyone in the Jazz Pod Collective Co-op.
You still can't get it, can you?
I can't. I mean, see, it's just a natural thing. You have to forgive me. I'm a failure at most things in life. Very few things have I been successful. And
That's
whether
not
it's
true.
1 a.m. or 10 a.m., I can't get it right.
Yeah, I will say we asked them, or you asked them, because you and I are sticker guys. First of all, look at my table. My table is like filling up with stickers like crazy.
Nice.
My podcast table here. So I'm a sticker guy. You're a sticker guy. We asked them because they're selling merch over at jazzpodcoop.com, and you asked if they have stickers, and they didn't. So we ordered them some stickers. So it's on the way. I got the proof. What do they call it? The proof.
Proof. It's a proof.
It's
man.
a proof.
You're
yeah.
legit. You're getting proof.
And I approved it, and the stickers are on the way. So once they get here, I will sticker up my table with one or two of them, and then send them off. And I'll give you some, and then we'll send them off to them. So
cool. Hey, you got to have stickers, man. Number one rule in life. That's really my belief.
It's like everything I have, everything Jess and I get, we're like, oh, dude, we could put stickers on it. Like everything.
Course.
Like, look at my water bottle.
Literally, I search for stickers.
That's
like, it's a thing in my life. Like, for example, let me give you an example. So I did a lot of skiing this year. Skied a lot at a location fairly north of here. And they have a weekly beer tent from different breweries just come in, right? So when I would take my midday break, maybe not, have a cerveza, I'm not sure. My number one question to every brewery that came through, where's my sticker? Literally the first thing on my mind. Do you want me to purchase a cerveza? Do you want a tip? Where is my sticker?
Where's my sticker?
This is how I think. It's a sickness, honestly. And I get made fun of a lot by my wife for it.
Well, I mean, you haven't been here in a while because we have been in quarantine. But once I'm fully vaccinated and you come over here, you're going to see the stickers everywhere, man. All on everything. It's stupid. Like, it's to the point where now it's just ridiculous. Like, it is a sickness, 100%.
It is. I mean, it's gotten to levels of like, yeah, it's bad. But hey, we're helping out. So it's the Jazz Co-op.
Jazz Pod Co-op.
Jazz Pod Co-op.
Yes.
You're helping them out, doing it solid.
Well, James, by the
now
way,
they got stickers, man.
They got stickers coming. Exactly.
And support their t-shirts and everything.
I ordered myself a hoodie. It's on the way. I can't. I'll wait. I'll wear it next week if it gets here in time for sure.
And it all goes to good deeds typically. So that's something we're proud of being a part of in a small way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not a specifically jazz podcast, so I'm not sure we fit in with, but I just love, and then we'll move on and we'll talk about the topics, but I just love what they're doing to support each other locally. Like, this is something that I think I've wanted to see for a long time. I'm not motivated enough. I'm not smart enough to know how to do this kind of stuff. So to see good people supporting other good people and putting out good content, like our boys Jedi and Germs are on there, like
there you go.
Years ago, we've had Jedi on, and we're going to get Devin on because Devin's awesome too. And we're going to get John on. And just the fact that all of these good people who are producing great content and great podcasts are teaming up together. It makes me happy because I don't like, that was the thing that always bugged me about radio, because you and I are sports radio nerds. And I just hated the whole thing. Like, you can't mention the other station, and there's always this competition. And I get why. I understand why, but I like seeing collaboration more. So that's why I like what they're doing. It makes me happy.
Like stickers.
What's that?
Like stickers. It makes you happy.
Like stickers, dude.
Do it yourself ethos from the Frank Turner interview comes full circle.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I will say,
that's you right there.
So we did get a lot of positive feedback from Frank Turner. I will say, Nate the Hemorrhoid, he also, he was, after the Minnesota losses, he was struggling, dude. He was struggling. And what I'm going to do, because this is going to transition well into our Jazz Talk, because it is Jazz Talk. I'm going to play, he sent us a voicemail today, and he lays it out much better than I could. So here's Nate the Hemorrhoid. So after the two losses, especially the second one, though, because he was a little upset with Rudy on that final play. And I understand why, but we'll get into that. But he was really upset. So here's Nate's thought and how we pulled him out of the funk.
Hi, Dog. Hi, Deuce. It's Mr. Hemorrhoid. I just wanted to tell you that, I was just down after that loss on Monday. Not gonna lie, Mr. Dog got the worst of it.
Some rage texts.
Yeah.
We'll just say that. I understand though, because I was feeling the same way.
And, I just was going to come in really negative today, but instead I listened to the Frank Turner interview, and it just made me happy. And so, I'm just going to be a positive Mr. Hemorrhoid instead, because I understand that we're all frustrated. I might have even used the words to Jim and Alan that looks like this season is now over or something, because I honestly was more mad about that loss than I've been regarding any of my teams in a long time. But, Frank picked me up, and, I'm just looking positive for the rest of the season. If they can go 8-3, 9-2, now all of a sudden everyone's forgotten about everything that happened on Saturday and Monday. So let's just keep ourselves positive, guys. I want to hear your takes, because obviously I think we all need a little explanation, because this was bad. And one thing that I wanted to highlight in the interview with Frank, besides that you guys just made my day by getting him to say hi to me even, he said something very interesting that I've also said myself. This world needs like a pandemic, or this world needs a war. And then we got it. And I realized that was a terrible mistake. So I love you, boys. Keep at it. And go Jazz.
Nate the Hemorrhoid. If you want to hit us up on the voicemail and text line, we would love to hear your thoughts on everything, especially the Jazz right now. 801-477-7678. That's 801-47-SPORT. Let us know what you're thinking. Real quick, and then I want to get your take on everything he said. Dude, it sounded like, for the first time, because I listened to that email or that voicemail when it came in, I'm listening to it on headphones now. It sounds like Blitzkrieg Bop is playing in the back, which is interesting because Nate freaking hates the Ramones. So Nate's he's got some explaining to do. That's what, maybe I'm mistaken, but it sounded like Blitzkrieg Bop. This is a text.
It's weird that he hates the Ramones. Not that I'm like super hardcore Johnny Ramone dude, because I'm not. I don't like portray that.
Yeah,
but I like I like some songs of the Ramones. That's for sure.
I love the Ramones, man. Like, because I've talked about this with Nate, and then after he told me that he doesn't like them, I went back and listened. I'm like, wow, they're even better than I remember. I love them, man.
They're a very mood niche thing for me.
Right.
Like I can't just, like, right now I couldn't turn on the Ramones and be excited. But if I'm in a certain mood and it hits me right, then I can go with the flow.
But I will say, there is one thing, it was recommended to me on Spotify. There's a mashup of Bob Marley and the Ramones. So it's Bob singing with Ramones music behind it, and it's fantastic. It's called Bobby Ramone. Check it out.
That's right. You've told me about that.
It's
I haven't
really
checked
good.
that out. I need to.
So here's one of Nate's texts after the second Minnesota game. He said, "I feel bad for Allen and James. No way to spin this. You guys have to talk about it without letting the emotions run wild." And if we had to have recorded right then, it would have been tough for me. But thank goodness we had some days. Thank goodness. And look, the Jazz got a record-setting night against the Sacramento Kings last night. So I don't want to act like it's all doom and gloom, but I'm not going to lie, man. It's a little concerning, those two losses to the Timberwolves. And now sometimes you will face teams, and every team, whether they're good or bad, comes up against us, and the matchups are just, they just hit perfectly, and the team knows how to defend you perfectly. And that's kind of what we felt. That's kind of what we saw in the Timberwolves games. I don't know what your reactions were after back-to-back losses to that god-awful team.
Well, look, the one thing that made it extremely difficult to swallow was the leads, right? It's not as if they were battling, 2 points here, 1 point here, at every end of quarter. When you're the Utah Jazz, currently the number one seed, and you have a 17 and an 18 point lead in a back-to-back games against the same team, and can't finish them out. I don't care if Donovan Mitchell's playing. I don't care if Mike Conley's in the lineup. I mean, there's a lot of other players, two players who are in the running for the Sixth Man of the Year award on our team. That should be a victory, right? Now, obviously, they went cold. The defense was frustrating at points, especially in the second game. Rudy losing, Russell on the last play of the second to last play of the game. Then Jazz fans complaining about the foul. Don't do that, Jazz fans. Whether it was or wasn't, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't want them calling that foul on Donovan Mitchell. Right. That's how you have to think about it before you tweet. Like, you really wouldn't. You may accept it at the end, but you would be like, come on, it's the last second. You got to earn that victory, not have it handed to you. So that, first of all, that kind of annoyed me with Jazz fan. And it was sort of propagated, in my opinion, by people in the media who write about it and want to go into the last 2-minute reports. And look, I've looked over the 2-minute reports. There have been a lot of bad calls, but to me, that one wasn't enough given the point in the game where you call it. Because Mike could have not crossed over to his right hand and got away from him and it wouldn't have been poked out. Sure, there was contact. But remember how often Jazz fans get angry when Rudy Gobert makes a sick block and someone jumps into him and they call a foul on Rudy for contact. So you can't have it both ways. If we're going to want to let him play a little bit, you got to want to let him play, right? So that scenario, I mean, but it was disheartening. I mean, both of those games with the lead, the margin of the lead. I mean, again, we're not talking 5 points. We're talking 17 and 18. Right. That's a lot in any game, even in the NBA in 2021 against, the worst team in the NBA. Like,
it's bad. It's
minus
bad, dude.
The Rockets, and they're battling for worst team, right? And if you're a Timberwolves fan, while you're excited to finally get back-to-back wins, are you? Don't you want the 1 or the 2 or the 3 pick? So I'm not really sure how excited they are either. At this point, though, I'm probably more nonchalant about it because the way the Jazz and I think part of this is the playoff seeding. What should they try to get, etc. At this point, I'm just like, whatever. Like if fans are thinking that way and it's somewhat a part of the organization's calculation on how they're running each game to game, then why would I even watch? Why do I even care till we have a full complement of players?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the game, like are we playing for the first seed or are we not? We trying to win each game or are we not? It's kind of one of those catch-22s where the Jazz have had such an amazing year and such a amazing run of it that with the resting and the injuries and the playoff seeding conversation coming about, and then 2 losses to the Timberwolves, a destroying of the Kings, I'm sort of caught in this, purgatory of like, let's get to the playoffs. I really don't care at this point where the seeding is. Like, I just want some games that actually matter and that you feel like they matter to the team.
I am with you 100%. And to me, it's not even necessarily the Timberwolves losses because, like I said, sometimes there are just teams that match up well against you. Obviously, the Wizards are one of those as well. And the Timberwolves are one, and we'll just be happy we're not facing them in the playoffs.
And the Timberwolves have been it for a long time.
The pesky
Wolves.
Wolves.
Just a this year thing. Even last year, as the team was construed, the Timberwolves struggled. I mean, and for eternity. That's why the Hot Rod Hundley called them the pesky Wolves.
Hot Rod came up with that, and it has never stopped being that way for the Jazz. I almost think Hot Rod may have cursed us a little bit with that one but it's a fact. It's
no matter how bad or good they are. Even when they had Kevin Love and Flynn would just drive around us, and he never made it in the league for after 2 years. So right. I mean, there's a lot of history there with the Timberwolves. Obviously, they haven't been good all that consistently in the franchise history, but even when they're bad, for some reason, Utah versus Minnesota,
it's crazy.
It's a weird scenario.
Even like Kevin Garnett's early days, before he was really Kevin Garnett, before he hit his prime, and they were not good, they would just always give us trouble. Always. Fortunately, we had John and Carl, and so we would pull out the wins usually, but I just remember those games always being tight and just so aggravating. So again, my big concern is not necessarily those two losses, although I'm not happy about them. That's for sure. My biggest concern is the way the Jazz are trending. 6-4 in the last 10 is not the Jazz we had back in December and January. This is not the same team, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they just hit a wall. I don't know, because it has been in kind of an abbreviated season where they're really cramming games in there, but everyone's dealing with that. That's the thing. So I don't know what is going on, but it is a little concerning. But I'm kind of with you, and I think the Jazz might be with you too. Like, let's just get to the postseason. This has been a grind of a season. Lots of games in not a large amount of time. They're gassed. They're tired. Like, Quinn is trying to find ways to get guys rest, but you really can't, because you're fighting for that number one seed. And the sad thing is, if they had won both those games, or even one of those games against the Timberwolves, they're in a much better position right now. Instead, this game on Friday? So tomorrow, as we record this, tomorrow against the Suns is huge. And I don't know if you watched the Suns last night, but they look good against the Clippers. Now, the Clippers are shorthanded. They don't have Kawhi, and Paul George just loves to choke down the stretch every single time, but they still look good. And Chris Paul has taken that team over, and he turned it into a clutch team. So I'm not feeling real good about it. We'll get to that preview, but the main thing I want to hit on real quick before we move on to the preview of that game is the reaction to Rudy's kind of defensive breakdown. And it stemmed from a lack of communication, I think, on the defensive end in that play that allowed for an easy Timberwolves layup. People are really riding Rudy and really frustrated. And I get it to an extent. Like, I get it. That was a bad time to have a defensive breakdown and make a mistake. That was about the worst time you could possibly pick. But without Rudy Gobert, I mean, let's put this in context a little bit. Without Rudy Gobert, the Jazz are, fifth seed. That's my predict. That's what I would say they are. Fifth seed at best without Rudy Gobert. The dude has been insane. As Rudy goes, so go the Jazz. That's how it's been. Now, when Donovan will have a bad night, you see other guys can step up most of the time. But if Rudy has a bad night, which doesn't happen very often, that's when the Jazz struggle. And that's what happened in the first Timberwolves game. The second Timberwolves game, here's the thing, man. They just went cold. Like, Minnesota was defending the Jazz. They weren't giving them anything at the rim, which I'm fine with, because the Jazz are going to hit threes, but they just went ice cold. Now, at the time, I'm like, well, they just set a blueprint on how to defend us. But really, do you really want to bank on the Jazz going like 1 of 25 from 3 during a stretch in the game? No, I don't want to bank on that. In fact, if Joe Ingles or Jordan Clarkson or anyone hits one more 3, the Jazz win the game, and we're not talking about it right now. So I'm not that worried about it. I wish people would lay off Rudy. That was a lot for me to, like, I've been stewing on this for days, so I had to just get that out. But I don't want people to be too hard on him for one mistake. And I understand, look, if I'm Ben Simmons, man, I'm riding that all the way to Defensive Player of the Year, because that was a bad time.
He will. Even though he sat out when Steph was on his epic run, he will. Let me say this. Look, yeah, you're right? It's the worst time to make a matchup mistake and not follow someone. But this is sort of part of, there's a few things, right? Because the NBA is so 3-point oriented that you're always running to the line. It's easy sometimes to lose someone in that scenario because you're concerned about the 3. And so you're rushing to that, and someone slips you on a screen like Russell did, and he gets lost. It sucks, right? It sucks to lose. I think what, especially the second game, really pointed out to me, and I don't want to say we've been critical, but we've been hesitant at times, right? Where Donovan goes full takeover mode. And I think it was obvious in that game how much they missed Donovan Mitchell in scenarios like that, because I feel like he could have got us, I know he can, I don't know if he would have done it on that day, but he can get shots and get buckets in ways that are outside of the offense and when you need it, right? He can put his head down and go get something, whether it's a free throw, a dunk, a layup, or create for someone else. I mean, Donovan does that better than anyone on our team. So I think you can see where he was clearly missed over those two games I don't want to say it hasn't been as apparent since he's been out, but it was obviously apparent there. No one could make a move on Edwards or Rubio, or even, shockingly, Karl Anthony Towns looked to be a defender, which is insane. That's a rarity, So to me, it demonstrated how, and we all knew this, but how extremely important the two pieces are. You can't have one without the other, because there are times where, the role players, whether it's Clarkson, Ingles, Connolly to a lesser extent than maybe Ingles. And I know, look, he's had his best year, but there are times it's a different level when the pressure's on. Think about it. Donovan has stepped in since his rookie year, midway through or whenever he starting, and has recognized, like, this is my team. Rudy knows this is our team, right? This is Rudy and Donovan's team. On any given night, it can be one or the other. Obviously, Jordan fills a big role of that. So does Joe. So does Niang. So does everyone, right? But at the end of the day, there's a different level of pressure when you're 1A and 1B. Yeah. And it comes through in how you learn to develop and play and where you feel pressure and where you don't. And I think in that moment, I saw with clarity that the playoffs are going to be a different beast, even though they've been there. And we talked about this on the High Notes podcast. When they needed it, they were struggling to find it. And I don't think they would have if Donovan was in the game.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought up the Joe Ingles thing, because last week you were, and I don't want to keep harping on this, but it's kind of relevant to this, what happened this past week. Last week on the show, you said that you weren't getting enough out of Joe Ingles, even though he's having a career year and his looks outstanding. He obviously listens to the show, and you got in his head, dude, because he hasn't been right since. He has not been right since, and he has been shooting lights out. Last night he was great against Sacramento. Let's see, was he great? Let me you have to pull that up. Ingles, I can't find him.
13 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds.
Okay, well, he was running the point, but he did look kind of usually I'm very confident when he's running the point, but I wasn't as much last night. I don't know. He just looked not as aggressive, I should say. But those two Timberwolves games, he was awful, dude. He was awful. And I'm blaming you. He obviously listens to the show. He obviously heard what you said, and it got in his head.
If I had, you're kind of like my kids. The level of power that you give me, I just wonder why I'm not more wealthy, because and I tell this to my kids all the time, the level of power that they think I have over the world, we'd be better off. Not that we're bad off, but there wouldn't be things, there wouldn't be work. There would just be fun. And so while I appreciate that, and Joe, thanks for listening, I didn't mean it. I just needed to see a little more out of you. You came through a little bit in the Kings game. You had a rough 2-game stretch. And that's sort of my point. The Jazz really are. I don't know that there's, even with Donovan, I don't know that there's any one player that the Jazz don't need to be successful. You know what I mean? Even in the playoffs, and even with Donovan's 50-point run last year in the bubble, it really does need to be a team group effort every night. They are a good team. Donovan's a very good player. Rudy's a very good player. They're not great. They're not LeBron yet, right? They're not Kawhi, because they haven't done it in the playoffs. They're not KD. They're not Kyrie yet. They could be come July, but they still got to prove it. And there's going to be spots in the playoffs where, and I think it's a given. I don't even know. It's not even a debate, where Donovan's going to be struggling. Rudy's going to be in foul trouble.
Right.
Can Jordan, can Joe, can they sort of, stem the tide, if you will, until those guys find their range? And that's really kind of what I'm looking for over the next little while. I have a question for you. So with all this rest, I mean, Ilyasova last night dropping trays.
Looking good, man.
Distance.
Everyone looked great last night.
Like, I mean, is it because look, your bench gets smaller as the playoffs get nearer, typically in a typical year. I mean, ideally, you want nothing more than an 8 max 9-man rotation in the playoffs, right? I mean, but with all these guys getting playing time, it'll be interesting in late game scenario. We all know how good Quinn is at drawing up plays, and I'm not sure how much rhythm Ilyasova could have with the starters, but you could put a really unique and bizarre lineup for a last second 3-point shot to tie the game with the players we have.
I mean, Matt Thomas, Ilyasova, like who are these guys? And you absolutely could.
And so, I mean,
he won't do that.
It's interesting. I'm not sure if these guys, because I don't know how deep the bench will go in the playoffs. Like I said, I don't think it could go more than 9, given injury or foul trouble. But it's interesting to see these players play and really get a feel for where they might be able to contribute in brief moments in the playoffs.
One more thing I want to mention. Bojan Bogdanovic. Now, I put this out on Twitter, and actually, I love this. So Jess, for some reason, every time she sees him, she watches every game with me. For some reason, she calls him Borg. She just automatically wants to call him Borg. And so that's his name in our house. And so every time I talk about him, I have to stop myself and not say Borg. But Borg is back, dude. Borg is without him, I'm not sure the Jazz built a big lead last night and go on to set a record. They put up 154 points in regulation. Even in today's NBA, that's a lot of points.
116 at the end of 3.
It's crazy, dude. I couldn't believe it. They had 100 points with 5 minutes left in the third.
I mean, I was sort of not watching aggressively because of the score. And I looked up and I'm like, oh, it must be the fourth quarter. It was 117 to 60.
Yeah.
And then I did a double take and I was like, whoa, it's the third quarter. I got 12 more minutes of nonsense to watch. Yes, I do.
Yes. I enjoyed every second. I watched that. I was so nervous about the Phoenix Clippers game that I watched the Jazz just dismantle the Kings rather than flip over to that. And of course I did flip over to it and the Clippers blew it. Pisses me off, man. So let's talk about the Suns game right now. It's a big game. I mean, that's the understatement of a century. The Suns right now have all the momentum in the world. They broke officially last night. They clinched a playoff spot. I mean, we knew they were going to, but they officially clinched it last night. So they've broken their drought. I think all the pressure is on the Jazz right now, and I don't like that because, as we've said throughout the season so far, the Jazz have not faced a whole lot of pressure this year. When they've faced big teams, it's usually their opponents are shorthanded. So they've been able to win those games. And when, I remember the back-to-back against the Clippers had their G League squad in there. And then the next game they come back with the full squad and the Jazz lose. So when the Jazz just haven't faced a whole lot of pressure situations. This is one of them, and they have not looked good against the Suns. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I don't think I'm going out on a limb here by saying I don't feel very comfortable about this game. I don't think I see the Jazz pulling this one out. That said, they could surprise me. I don't know. How are you feeling going into this one?
Well, much like the Jazz, I apologize. Much like the Jazz, resting players via injury or not, I sort of wonder, Chris Paul is playing on the next level right now. I mean, he played better than Devin Booker last night, right? And then he threw some shade at Paul George, wouldn't even shake his hand. I don't know if you saw that. That was interesting. But I do wonder, look, I think the Suns had the longest streak in the NBA not making the playoffs, or were tied for the longest.
Damn.
So that's broken. So congratulations to them. But my next question is it feels like they're going for one, or they're trying to make a statement, right? And I wonder, given Chris Paul's age, and look, I know he's he's like LeBron, he's a walking miracle as far as athletes performing at a high level late into their career. But as I was watching, bits and pieces of the Clippers game and Chris Paul, not only does he seem super motivated to make a statement, and he always plays hard, but I wonder down the stretch, if him playing this hard at the final 10 games of the regular season matters in the playoffs. Because, I mean, you need to really evaluate. Look, DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker have never been to the playoffs. There's going to be a learning curve. We've discussed this, right? A guaranteed learning curve. And then, you know, they're playing on all cylinders. Frank Kaminsky, he made Frank Kaminsky come around again last night in a way that I can't recall. And maybe I haven't been watching enough Suns basketball, but I thought Frank was going to be a unique player in the NBA. And all you got to do is put him with Chris Paul, and he seems to be. Am I worried about the Suns game? Absolutely. Right? I mean, I'm of the belief the Jazz should try to win out and get the first seed. I don't care how the rest of it shakes out. So I really believe it's that important.
And I was gonna ask you that. Are you okay if the Jazz drop to the 2? Like, are you gonna be super bummed about it? Are you gonna be like, oh well, that's detrimental to our title hopes?
You know, I guess, I mean, if you really evaluate and game it out and do some statistical, you know, and just see like, oh, we want to try to not meet the Clippers or the Lakers to the Western Conference Final, this or that, yada, yada, yada. It seems like a lot of sports talk radio heads think about that. I don't know that NBA teams and players actually do. I sort of hope they don't, in a way, right? I mean, because, I mean, are the Blazers that better a matchup? Did you see what the Blazers did last night? They dropped 130 on someone in regulation, right. You know, and look, Dame and McCollum get going. Nurkic is back in the lineup. I don't know when Collins will return. I mean, do you want to drop to the 3 and play the Mavericks? I don't know how far you drop. It's the Western Conference, people.
It's rough.
There's no easy out. The Memphis Grizzlies are playing well, and I'll take the Jazz versus the Grizzlies in 8 and maybe 5, but you're going to feel bumps and bruises. So if we're always playing for the second round, the assumption is we're getting out of the first. And frankly, that's a bold assumption in the West.
Yeah. I mean, even the Nuggets without Jamal Murray are playing well. Like and here's the thing. Like we talked about this on Hitting the High Notes, and it was a fun discussion. And there's just so much that you can't control that I don't know if you even want to start playing that game where, oh, well, these guys, the Lakers might fall to 4, so we're going to have to, maybe we want to get to 2. But here's the thing, man, like, if you're at 1, you're probably going to have to face the Warriors. I mean, as it is playing out right now, the Warriors and the Spurs are going to be playing in the play-in tournament. So then you'll probably be playing the Warriors the first round. Are you kidding me? The way they handled the Jazz a couple weeks back, I don't want to do that. And then you got to face the Lakers. But if you fall down, then you're going to have to face Portland. It's just there's too much you can't control that I think you really do have to go out there and try to win every one of your games. You will drive yourself absolutely insane if you try and game the system and control your fate to an extent that you just absolutely cannot do.
Well, and also, I mean, I wonder, athletes are psychologically interesting to me, right? You talk about superstitions, you talk about, alpha males, quote unquote, alpha dogs, however you want to do it. Like, it just seems weird that being the number 1 seed, you would fear anyone. Sure, there may be a team where you're like, well, LeBron, Anthony Davis, I don't really want to play him, but I think we can hang. Like, yep. Is that sort of the psyche you want dripping in to your thoughts? No, we're avoiding people. We're trying to make sure we get to a place. Well, go through them. You're the number 1 freaking seed in the conference, in the league. No one is going to win a title without going through
crazy tough teams. Especially in the Western Conference. Brooklyn might skate. Like they might get to the finals without having it. But if you're in the Western Conference, there's no chance. Now, I guess the question is, do you want to play these teams earlier or later? I mean, obviously you want to go as far as you can, but you can't control what other teams are going to do. There's too many scenarios to even try and figure out. So just go out there, put your best team on the floor and try and win every game. Like we're at the finish line almost. We've got, how many games left do we have? We have 1,
10.
2, 3, 10 games left. And it's been a grind of a season. So just grit your teeth, dude, and just bear through it and try and get out with the number 1 seed. That's all you can do. I still have the Jazz losing to the Suns. It's on the road. It's a big pressure game, but I think you're right. You made a good point. Like the Suns, all the criticism that is thrown at the Jazz in the playoffs. Well, they haven't gone very far. They haven't had a deep run. Well, the Suns have had none of that. Chris Paul's about it. That's it. And Devin Booker is not a good clutch player. I think that needs to be stated more often. That's why they've switched to Chris Paul down the stretch, because Devin Booker can't get it done in the clutch. So do you want to depend on a guy who's had no playoff experience whatsoever and have him carry your team? No. DeAndre Ayton, no playoff experience. Like, I think you're right. All the criticism that's thrown at the Jazz, I think maybe I just don't see it because I'm not following Suns media, but I think that could easily be thrown at the Suns as well, and should be, quite frankly.
Well, and not just that, dog. I mean, here's another thing. I feel like this feels like a uniquely Jazz argument. I feel like Jazz fan argument, maybe I should say, or talking Jazz fan talk, Jazz sports talk radio argument, because most teams would say get the 1 seed. Most fans, I think, would say get the 1 seed. It means something, right? But also, this is sort of the hyperbole or conversation, like, why can't the Jazz get out of the second round? So I feel like Jazz media and fans are looking for any way for this season to be successful, meaning getting to the conference finals, getting out of the second round. And so that's all they want. Whereas I'm thinking of it as, no, we're good enough to be challenge anyone for the title. And so the Jazz fans want to say, oh, well, we got out of the second round. If we lose in the conference finals or whatever, it's okay because we got further than we did last year. Well, when you're the 1 seed and have the season we've had, that's an expectation for me.
Right.
I'm not trying to game it because I'll be disappointed if they don't.
Well, I'm going to halfway agree with you. I don't think that's the fans' argument. I think that's the local sports media trying to spin the situation. Like when we were easily the number 1 seed, and it didn't look like people were going to catch us. It was like, oh, they need the number 1 seed. But now that we've been struggling, the momentum is going to Phoenix, and it looks like we might not get the number 1 seed. Now and nothing against the local sports talk radio. Like, I think they're actually much better than a lot of people say. But there is a notable difference in the way they're covering it. And now they're saying, but no, it's actually better this way because then this, and you avoid the Lakers or whatever it is. And so I think and you see this in politics all the time. And I think that's part of it because they want people, because dude, we see it on this show. When the Jazz were going gangbusters and doing things, that we've never seen a Jazz team do, dude, our downloads went through the freaking roof, man. Like, we had, like, not record setting, but we had a ton of new listeners and people jumping on board. Now that they've kind of tapered off a little bit, we're back to our regular base, which is great. I love. But, and imagine if your income and your bottom line depends on viewers and listeners, then you're going to try and spin it any way you can to make sure as many people are tuning in. And I get it. I totally get it. But I don't think it's as much the fans. Maybe it is, but I don't think it's as much the fans.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the psychology of it? If you say you try to game it out, like we're talking, and who on the podcast made a good thing. It's really hard 10 games out, right?
Right.
Maybe the last 1 or 2 when we were guests on their show, maybe the last 1 or 2, that's really where you could have movement. But my question is, what if you do that and you fail at it? You fail at trying to fail. Is that a weird concept? Where does that leave you?
It happens all the time too.
Right. And so, I mean, like, I don't even know what that means.
I know.
Then where are you? Like, I mean, explain this. We're trying to avoid the Lakers and the Clippers. So we do all these things, which means we don't think we can beat them. I mean, when you say you're trying to avoid someone, I'm sorry, that means you think you're going to lose.
It could, or it could just.
What does it mean?
I think you want the best chance to win. And if you don't like the matchup, then I understand why they might do it, why they might say, hey, we gotta maximize our chance at going as far as we can by trying to find the best matchup for us. I get that. And Quinn being an analytics guy, I can totally see him doing that. But the thing is, if you start playing that game, it's going to be a nightmare because there's so much you can't control.
But why does it matter? Like you hit on, the bottom line is the likelihood. It's a high likelihood. Whoever comes out of the West is going to have to go through the Lakers or the Clippers, some variation of that, one or the other, if not both.
True.
So what does it matter whether it's in the first or the second or the finals, conference finals, or what? Like, what does that mean? And I can only think of one thing. It's a pat on the back. So it appears to be what the Jazz fans want and Jazz media and Jazz organization is a moral victory, in my estimation, based on this gaming thing. Let me ask you this. Here's something for the analytic dudes. I watched the Lakers last night. While Anthony Davis got his statistics, he looked less than impressive.
Did he?
And dragging. Let me ask you this. LeBron James is going to be coming off an injury. If there's any one time to get the Lakers, maybe it's the first round.
It might be. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Two players coming off significant time missed and injuries. And I granted those two players are great, but I think it might present the best chance for them to be knocked off because they're only going to, theoretically speaking, and if history is any determiner, get better as the playoffs go on, not worse.
Well, the likelihood of getting them in the first round is not good, so I doubt that's going to happen. But
I'm just saying.
I know.
I mean, maybe earlier is better. I don't know.
Or maybe someone will take care of them early for us. Who knows?
We can pray.
We can pray. We are running short on time. That was a lot of fun Jazz discussion. Let's move on, though. Where do you want to go next, man? Where do you want to go? You want to go?
We got to go NFL draft, man.
All right, NFL draft.
Here it is. BYU fans, celebrate. Get on your high horse. Zach Wilson appears to be number 2, going to the New York Jets. God bless him. They traded away Sam Darnold. So I mean,
that's a tough place to go,
look,
man.
I'm proud and happy for him. He's a Utah kid, right? I think he chose the wrong school. And
hold on, you there?
I'm here. There it is. Zach, you're breaking in and out. There you go. We're good. Zach Wilson, excited for him. Here's the more interesting question. And this gave me I don't know why. I'm not a Jaguars fan. A minor panic attack last night.
Okay.
Urban Meyer is going to the NFL this year. He is getting Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick tonight. Will he be successful? Because I was trying to gauge, if you think back, Lane Kiffin, not a great college coach, but a pretty good one, went to the Raiders, disaster, obviously. Right. Nick Saban, great college coach, went to the Dolphins, maybe not a disaster, but not what they were hoping for. Right. Then you think of Jimmy Johnson, from Miami to the Cowboys, uber successful. And then Barry Switzer, following up by Barry Switzer right there in Dallas, successful as well. What are you can't be a college coach, right? In form. Part of why Nick Saban wasn't as successful as he could have been is just because of his personality.
I agree.
He's a very much wants to control things that you can't control at the NFL level. Now, I don't know any of these people. Never met them. Maybe I've briefly spoken to Urban Meyer when he was running across campus back in the day, or yelled at him. It's probably a more likely scenario. Yeah, buddy. Anyway, to me, his personality and the way he runs a team is more like Nick Saban than Jimmy Johnson. You see Jimmy Johnson on Fox, and you're like, oh, he's just he can handle it, Urban Meyer is very matter of fact. I think so my question is his personality and the way he's run Utah, Ohio State, Florida, that's not going to probably work in Jacksonville.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Jimmy Johnson.
I think,
or is he Nick Saban?
I think he's more like Bill Belichick with a personality. That's how I view Urban Meyer, and we all know how it's worked out for Bill Belichick, although the jury's out to see how much of that was Tom Brady. I mean, one season without Brady, it's not looking super great. But we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I know what you're saying, but just again, total outside perspective here. I don't know Urban Meyer. It just seems like from the way he comes across that he's a little bit more adaptable than Nick Saban is. Nick Saban is just a hard ass and very difficult to approach. Whereas Urban Meyer seems a little bit more approachable, a little bit more easygoing, definitely wants things his way, but I can just see him being a little bit more adaptable in the NFL.
See, I don't know. I disagree. I mean, I'll be interested to see how it plays out. To me, he is Saban, like they're the same. The way they run their teams and the sort of discipline they demand is the same, at least on a college level.
I don't think so, because you look at all the trouble all those Florida kids got in. Like they're
yeah, but we didn't know about it till after.
Yeah, but still, I don't know how much control and discipline he has when everywhere he's gone, there's just been nothing but guys getting in trouble.
But they've been able to keep it under the radar. You can't do that in the NFL. You know, if Trevor Lawrence gets in trouble, everyone's going to know about it. You don't have a whole community trying to help you as you might in the past. So I don't know. I just don't feel like he's on the level of Jimmy Johnson. I mean, if you think back to even Barry Switzer, he had to adjust a lot when he became the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, because he was sort of more in the mold, in my estimation, of a Saban, a Belichick, a Meyer. Whereas Jimmy Johnson, they loved him, and Barry Switzer had to earn that. So I don't know. It's something I was thinking about and trying to say, which person do I think he's closer to from an outside perspective, personality wise? And to me, it's, Saban and Belichick, and I'm not sure how that plays. Bill Belichick has the gravitas now where he can do whatever. I'm not sure if he's starting out in 2021, if that plays.
Probably not. Probably not. But I mean, you got to work your way up to that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's always been that way. Belichick, it's not like he just turned it on, once they started building dynasties. I think he's always been that way. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, but it'll be fun. Zach Wilson will, if he goes to the Jets, that's a tough place to start out your professional career. Because if you're not good right off the bat, you're gonna face a lot of criticism, and a hell of a lot more than he faced in Provo. We'll just say that, in the state of Utah. So it'll be tough, man. We'll see what happens. Anything more you want to say about the draft, or?
I'm not super draft guy. So other than that, no. I'm excited for Zach Wilson. I'll be interested to see how my Bears pick and your Vikings, probably not well, would be my guess.
Probably.
Probably move up 8 spots to draft another Mitch Trubisky. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But I mean, it really is a moment, whether a Utah or a BYU fan. Look, he's not going to be the number 1 pick. He's not going to be Alex Smith. But Alex Smith wasn't from Utah. So it's a very full cycle. If you're a native Utah, you can appreciate that. And so it's a cool story. He's going to make a lot of money. I'm not sure how much that will translate to success on the field, but I wish him well.
Yeah, same. Last thing I want to talk about real quick in our last 4 minutes is Floyd Mayweather is giving in to the reality TV, YouTube idiocracy and is going to fight Jake Paul. I mean, I guess it's fun because you would think that Jake Paul is just going to get his ass kicked, because I don't think he's really faced a real fighter. And there's some rumblings that maybe his other fights have been fixed, which I wouldn't be surprised. But it's almost like this Jake Paul kid is one time I heard him described as a professional idiot. And that's exactly what he is. He's a professional idiot. And he's doesn't mean he doesn't work really hard, and doesn't mean he's not a good fighter, but he's a professional idiot. And I with guys like this, it's just kind of better if you just don't give them attention, because that's what they want. And maybe they'll just go away. But for whatever reason, Floyd Mayweather thinks that he thinks it's okay to legitimize this kid, and he's going to get in the ring with him. I don't know, man. The older I get, the more I realize how old I am, because, this kind of stuff is like, this is the kind of, I feel like my parents and grandparents, like, oh, these kids think so. The youth today is so stupid. And I'm definitely in that camp right now. I don't know what your thoughts were when you heard this.
I mean, you're not right, but let's be honest. Boxing needs a little flux of publicity. So from a sport perspective, it's probably not that dumb. I'm shocked that Floyd Mayweather, would be interested in being involved. But then I remember it's Floyd Money Mayweather.
That's it. There you go.
And when money talks, he's ready to fight. It's sort of, I'll be interested to see, because we all know, and watching Mayweather through his whole career, especially after early on, he's not a knockout artist. He's a defensive points tactician, which is how he wins his fights. But maybe he goes for the knockout here. That's the best we could hope for. Well, is that Floyd is just like, all right, I'm going to show this young punk, and just TKOs him round 1, minute in.
He's like Mayweather, and say what you want, and there's a lot of criticism against him, and I am fully on board. I totally agree with that. But he is a smart fighter. He is like the exact opposite of what Jake Paul is. Jake Paul is an absolute moron. The guy is, but he's managed to like dumb his way into millions of dollars and crazy fame by being a supervillain, essentially. And so I guess if that's your goal and you don't have any dignity or integrity, go for it. Like, that's great. But Floyd Mayweather is an intelligent fighter. Like, he knows, it's kind of like Muhammad Ali when, the Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman. Like, he knows that he can just stand back and he can get beat up, and you go for the points and you go for the not. I mean, he knows how to do it. And so we'll see. It's interesting. It will be interesting, and it's going to generate a ton of money, which kind of sucks. But here's the thing that I wish Floyd Mayweather wouldn't legitimize this kid, because not even Dana White, the UFC guy, UFC is kind of it's like real wrestling, right? Like, it's kind of, I don't want to talk trash on it, but it's not, I don't know, dude. Maybe it's more like showboating type stuff. It's more like it's the flair of it all. And not even Dana White wants to do business with this kid. So what does that say about Money Mayweather? I don't know.
I think it says all you need to know. Money Mayweather, and let's hope he knocks him out. It'll be interesting. And I don't really understand why 50 fights, 50 wins. Why do you want to fight 51 to be with this dude?
Money.
You already reached the highest heights that you could in your boxing career, and had a sort of exhibition one with Conor McGregor, if you will. Why add Jake Paul to the mix? I mean, the Conor McGregor one now looks like a genius thing, because at least Conor's a real fighter.
Exactly.
And we should give credit to Jake Paul. Like, he's training hard. He's trying to be, but he's not on that level, and it's stupid.
Well, dude,
I hope Floyd knocks him out.
The kid can't even grow a real beard. So, I mean, how serious can we take him? Anyway, that is going to do it for episode 366 of Dog and Deuce. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks again for all the great feedback on the Frank Turner interview. Thanks again for hitting thank you to Hitting the High Notes for having us on. That was a really fun discussion. Links to all of that is going to be in the show notes. So we'll be back next week talking more Jazz basketball. The season is winding down, so join us then. We want to know what you think of the NBA and the sports world in general. So hit us up. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your day.